Well, we got a lot to cover, so I'm going to get started. Currently, we've got Cheryl and we have Drew and myself as voting members, so we can't actually vote on anything unless
You have
Tom.
Joe here also.
But Joe hasn't been
He's
approved
not
by the
sworn in.
selectmen,
Okay.
so he cannot vote on anything. That's the problem. So if we don't get Tom to sign on tonight, we won't be able to vote on anything. We can still go through all the discussions and everything else, but we won't be able to vote on anything. So if Tom pops on, we will.
Hi,
Hi, Deb.
Deborah Pasquale here.
Cool. So normally we would do the acceptance of minutes right off the bat, but again, with Tom not being online at the moment, I'm just going to move on from that. We do have discussions of budget. At 6:15, we're going to talk with our fire chief. We also have discussions of the proposed Silver Lake Regional School District budget. We have our interview with Deb. We also have discussions on the wage and personnel amendments, discussions on the RFP for legal services for the zoning bylaw review, reserve fund transfers, correspondence, public participation calendar, and as may arise. So again, we're going to skip the acceptance of minutes because the fact that we can't vote on those.
Tom's coming in.
Oh, is he? Cool. Then we'll wait a second.
Good timing.
Perfect timing, yes. Tom.
I don't know how much help I can be, but
Hi, Tom.
Hey, sorry I'm late, Fred.
No
Hi,
problem.
Tom.
We were just going to skip the acceptance of minutes because we didn't have a voting quorum, but now that you're here, we'll move right on to that. So,
Okay.
has everybody had a chance to look at it's the 2/8 minutes, right, Linda?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, has everybody had a chance to look at the 2/8 minutes?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion then to approve the 2/8/2021 minutes.
I make motion to approve 2/8/2021 minutes.
Second.
Second. Okay. Moved. So moved. The next thing we have on the list is the budget.
Sorry, Fred. I just have to have you roll call the vote on everything because we're on Zoom.
That's right. That's right. We are on Zoom. Okay. Well, we'll call the votes. So Cheryl.
Aye.
Aye. Tom.
Aye.
Drew.
Should I vote since I missed that meeting? I'll
Missed
try to miss fewer meetings. My dad was on the phone at the time, so I
That's
figured
fine.
I shouldn't even try to join.
Okay. So you can, and then I'll say aye myself.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that. Heads up, Lynn. I keep forgetting. I'd like to get back in at some point, So-
Right?
All right. So the next item on the list is the budgets. I'm kind of concerned this is going to take more than the 10 minutes that we have left. So does anybody have a problem if we move up the interview with Deb?
No,
No,
Not at all. Is she here?
no,
Yeah,
yes.
she's here.
here.
All right.
This
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at all the.
I know.
I didn't see your name there. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So Deb, I want to thank you for your interest in the Finance Committee. I think we'll just
Okay.
have everybody just mention their name, how long they've been here, and then we can talk about a little bit about yourself. So my name is Frederick
Okay.
McGovern. I've been with the Finance Committee now since November 2018. So this is my third cycle through the budget. Who's next?
Hello.
I'm Cheryl. I've been with the Finance Committee since October of 2019. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I'm
Tom?
Tom Connolly. I've been with the Budget Committee all of 4 months. I can only attest to how helpful everybody has been at kind of bringing me up to speed and just helping one another out. So welcome.
Thank you.
And Drew.
Hi, I'm Drew. I'm just finishing up my first year on the Finance Committee.
Cool. All right, Deb. So why do you like Deb or Deborah? I'm sorry, being a little informal today.
Deb is fine.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining the Finance Committee?
Okay. Well, I moved to Halifax about 12 years ago, And I moved from Avon and actually grew up in Quincy, and I just love this smaller town life here. So I'm just interested in just the structure of how things are done in the town. I did join on that for a few years and strongly advocate for them for the watershed and the pond, and the health of the pond. I'm a photographer and also a activities assistant for a nursing home that I worked for years. And also I just recently took the course for real estate sales, and I'm taking the exam on March 3rd. So I did run my own photography business for years and years before, and I'm not sure how much help I could be on this, or if I'm a good fit for this, but I was just gonna give it a try and see.
Well, again, we like a wide variety of experience. It doesn't matter if you have, no experience in finance or you're a finance manager at a major Fortune 500 company. We don't really care about that. What we want is a diversity of opinions so that we can have a better cross-section of what people the town is represent, so we're representing the people of the town. So we like a good cross-section of that. So typically what we do is we meet, right now we're meeting every Monday. And again, the date, when we have a full board again, we can discuss changing calendars if Mondays doesn't work for everybody. But typically what we do is we meet every Monday to review the budget, or if there's requests for reserve fund transfers. Typically after the town meeting, which will be coming up later this year, it slows down. So in the summer, we might only meet once every 2 weeks. And that would be just in case we actually have, something that needs, like a reserve fund transfer, that sort of stuff. Those meetings typically are kind of short. We've had meetings that are 10 minutes long. This is actually the busiest time of the year right now. So we're actually meeting on a weekly basis. I expect that when we get into March, we might actually have to adding some additional meetings when we really need to start going through and making the hard decisions of, okay, here's all the requests. We know how much money we have. We know that we don't have enough for everybody. So what exactly are we going to approve, and what are we going to say, sorry, we can't do that. So those hard decisions will be coming up in the near future, and I expect those will probably be next month. So when we get to that, a meeting that might be like, let's say 30 minutes, like a month ago, might be an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. It depends on what we can get through for, that particular night. So you're coming in at a good time, because it's like literally, you're going to get a lot of help, because again, we've got, a full board. So if you can't make a meeting, that's fine. But,
Okay.
we're going to be getting really into the bulk of the work in the next couple of weeks. So do you have any concerns based on what I've said so far?
No, just like understanding things like this.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to fully understand right what's going on.
That's why we have Charlie. Charlie's our
okay.
Charlie will explain everything that we don't understand. And if Charlie doesn't know it, Sandy knows it. So
Sandy knows that, believe me.
yeah. Sometimes Sandy knows it and Charlie doesn't. So we're covered,
Okay.
So.
I would like to say that I'm getting married soon, and my fiance also bought a property in Halifax. We're both on the pond, so we plan to be here a long time.
That's
So
good.
we're interested in, of course, happening in Halifax and how it's, things are, the health of the town here. And we do strongly advocate for the health of the pond. So I just want to make that clear. I don't know if that's a problem, because I do strongly feel about the protection and the health of the pond and the environment. I'm very much into the environment, and I'm also a shorebird monitor for Duxbury Beach. I also do that. So I'm very, very into the environment, and
That's perfectly fine. We all
funding
have.
for that, and
Yep, that's fine. We have other members that are like Drew. He's really into energy independence and solar and that sort of stuff. So all of us have different, goals, like what we would like. But that's why we come together as a committee, because just because this is an excellent idea with we might not be able to afford it, or we might have to sit there and say, okay, how can we create a long-term plan to get to that point? So, your input is always appreciated. So, so based on what I've said so far, are you still interested in joining the board?
yes.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to have Deborah Pasquale join the Finance Committee. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
So we'll do a roll call vote. Cheryl?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
And I say aye as well.
Fred, could I just ask, is
Sure.
Joe Vitrano official?
Joe is actually not official until after he meets with the selectmen tomorrow night.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that brings up another
I
point.
saw him on, so I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, guys. So Fred, will they send me an invite or something? I haven't seen anything for tomorrow yet.
Linda, do you know what's going on with that?
That's Charlie will probably handle that.
I
right?
thought we had gotten something out to everybody, but
I think he's looking for the Zoom information, probably, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can get that out to everybody too. Yeah, to both. him
Yeah,
and-
because I'm actually going up to the meeting because I guess you need to have somebody in person. So
Oh, no,
I'll be going
right.
up
Well,
to the
It's
selectmen.
easier doing it in person, yes.
Right. So I'll be going up to the selectmen meeting tomorrow
But-
as required.
Joe and Deborah, our expectation was that everybody was coming in person.
Okay.
So-
What time's the meeting, Charlie? Because I might have a little conflict tomorrow.
I believe the agenda is that you two would be tomorrow at 6:45. Let me make sure about that. It's the 23rd. tomorrow. Yeah, 6:45. We had an appointment for both of you.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
About how long, Charlie?
Not more than 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. And then just go to the selectman's office,
Be the Great Hall up on the second floor of the building.
okay. Okay. Anything I need to bring or just myself?
Just yourself.
All right.
And Deborah, if you can attend, that'd be great too. We could get
Okay.
everybody
6:45,
signed
Great
off.
Hall tomorrow.
That way we can jump right into next Monday, having everybody approved and a full board once again.
Yeah.
Which
Sorry,
is-
Fred, I disrupted your vote.
No, that's quite all right. So we did the vote, correct, Linda? Everybody?
Yes, I got through that you had everybody. I think he asked about Joe after the roll call.
Correct. Yeah, right. So I just, what I was going to follow up with is if, I just wanted to make sure if Deb could join us tomorrow so that we can
Yes.
take care of the selectmen portion of this. So that's great. So
Okay,
Deb,
I
we
just
look
want-
forward to you. Yes, go ahead, Deb. Sorry.
I just have one question. I just want to make sure I'm not, if you have only so many spots available, I want to make sure I'm not taking a spot of
Oh,
somebody
no.
who would be more qualified.
No, you're perfectly qualified.
All right.
We're not taking anybody's
Okay.
spot. You don't need to worry about
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
again, we like to have the full board because life happens And
Uh-huh.
in prior years where we had actually 4 people, it made it really difficult when life happens and all of a sudden you're down to 3 and you can't vote on anything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when we have 7, if somebody can't make it, or even if 2 people can't make it, you still have quorum and business can continue on. So that's why we like to have the full board.
Okay.
All right. So Deb, you're more than welcome to stay on for the rest of the meeting. Or if you want, you can get off, but we're going to move on now to
Okay,
the
I'll
6:15 budget discussion with our great fire chief. How are you today, Jason?
Good. How are you?
Good. So if everybody could go to the one share drive and go to, I don't know if Deborah's got access to this or even Joe at this point.
No, I have a meeting with IT on Friday, Fred.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get you all set up with town emails. But if you go to the one share account under the fire department budget, you'll see the Excel sheet and you can bring that up and it's got multiple worksheets to cover different line items. So does everybody have access to that?
Mhm.
Cheryl,
Yep, all set.
all set? Okay, I don't want to move on until everybody's all set. So again, we're not going to cover any really of the wage items that comes at a later point. So I'd like to move on to just covering let's see, we'll jump over to line number 54, which is the firefighter training. So I see there's a slight increase.
Fred,
With-
before we go to
Yes.
50, can we
Yes.
just touch on 52?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we could discuss it.
Yeah, it's line 52 is the administrative assistant, and there's a
Yes.
it's a basically we had cut hours from that position when we made a decision to go to outsource our ambulance billing.
Yep.
It didn't totally eliminate all the work that was involved in that. There is still some work that the administrative assistant needs to do.
Okay.
The other portion, we didn't have, I was utilizing out of call wages, a deputy chief position, which we no longer have. That was honestly handling a lot of administrative things that now fall under the administrative assistant position. So I
Right.
did restore those 4 hours to that position, and I made a note that could come out of call wages.
Okay. Yeah, we also know that you've got that request for the change in position, but we're going to cover that at a later point when we get into.
Totally unrelated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll deal with that issue at a later point. But thank you for letting me know about line 52. So going back to training, there's just a modest increase of $2,000. Last year was $58,758. This year the new request is $67,58. So I mean, I guess this is for we have more full-time members. Is this what's going on with this?
Not that we have more full-time members, we have more full-time members attending college classes. So if a full-time member takes a college class, we pay 50% of the tuition if they have a passing grade of B or better.
Yep.
And we usually I have 1 or 2 people taking college classes, and now I have 4 people taking college classes.
Well, that's always a good thing. So,
Yeah.
So that's
all right.
what that increase reflects.
Perfect. All right. So then we've got our big one, which is line 55, which is the expenses. So this is really where I wanted to get into the bulk of the discussion,
Yep.
since the last 3 years have been pretty close. Obviously, I expected some type of an increase with the, PPE usage. I didn't even know if it came into here or not, if that was a different.
We did add in public safety supplies, which a lot of I'll get into when we put in the ambulance supply, where that, I think we take, depending on what COVID related item it is, we'll see some that comes out of expenses and others that come under ambulance supplies. But
Okay.
So that's where there's a slight increase under the public safety supplies. The other two items is under radio equipment. It was increased by $1,000.
Okay, the communication, yep.
Mostly, I know this upcoming year, 4 years ago, we got a grant for $50-something thousand to purchase some portable radios, and now all the batteries now are coming up for replacement, and it's over $100 per battery. So I know that I'm going to see some considerable expense there. And then the turnout gear, I did put in for a $3,500 increase. Generally, we have roughly 30 members of the department. Turnout gear lasts it has a 10-year lifespan on it, and we try to replace 3 sets a year. We've been level funded at that $10,500 now for quite a while. It used to be as a separate article, and now we put it actually in the budget, which is great. But the price of turnout gear is going up. It's roughly $3,500. We must have had, before I started, a large purchase of turnout gear that all is seeming to expire at the same time. And the other issue with the turnout gear is, it's not, we have a lot of turnover, and it's not, we try to recycle it as best we can. We'll, as long as the gear is in good condition, we'll give it to a new person. But if I have someone that turnout gear that's 6 feet tall and weighs 250 pounds, and now I hire a 150-pound female, it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
So why we had put in for it basically buys one additional set of turnout gear this year. So from 3 sets to 4 sets.
Okay. So getting back to the communication equipment of the radio batteries, how long do those typically last?
Roughly 4 years.
Okay. I'm just trying to think long-term planning, so we don't, have big increases. If we could kind of think ahead and say, okay, we know that's going to be coming up. It's just, I'm just thinking to myself, for the future. And the turnout gear, you try to replace 3 sets a year?
Roughly, it depends how many new people that come on. There's no exact science to it because, like I said, people are different sizes. Some year we might have more turnover than others, so I might have to buy brand new turnout gear. In other years, I'm replacing turnout gear that comes up for expiration. So, I think that number is fairly workable. It goes from 3 to 4 sets a year. But I mean, we know that long term, we need to buy a minimum of 3 sets a year just to keep everyone in NFPA compliant gear.
Right.
But we haven't had, we don't have a lot of people that stay for 10 years. So we have a lot of, it's just difficult to turn out gear because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. Got it. So we do have a larger set of equipment that's going to be expired coming up in the near future. Like how?
I don't. It's more so. It's that, and it's that I don't really have any left in, or much left in stock when we hire new people. That fit them anymore.
Right. No, I'm just thinking if in 3 years you're going to have 6 expired. Are we going to see a big increase on that year, or do you think you're trying to get it so that it's more balanced off year to year to year?
Yeah, basically we're trying to balance it out.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jason on line 55? Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Do you have something?
For the past 10 years, that number has, even though it was through article before, has been at that 10.5 number. So, and we've seen like everything else in life, pretty substantial increases in the price.
Okay. I know you're cutting in and out a little bit. So, Cheryl, Tom, Drew, you have any questions on anything on line 55?
No, hey, Chief, you haven't spent on just for clarification, because it's a small number, but you haven't spent your dues and meetings budget for quite a while. So I'm just curious, is something big coming up this year that one's going up a bit?
We have increases in the Fire Chiefs Association dues have gone up. think that's about it, really.
Okay. It's a small number. I was just curious because it's been low since 17.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's move on to line 56, which is the fire station maintenance. Basically, there's a slight increase with electricity. That's what it is. But on the supply equipment, I really was curious what this ply movement system was.
Oh, the prime event system is the system that hooks up to the exhaust on the apparatus and takes out all of the diesel exhaust.
I see. So there's a main.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go. Sorry, I'm cutting off. Go ahead,
So
Jason.
that kind of trouble going up pretty substantial over the past couple of years. I guess part of it was a lawsuit that was filed against the company that manages it, that they have to pay prevailing wage where before they weren't paying prevailing wage. So we've seen pretty substantial increases in the prime event maintenance, and other, I'm using it as an example, but like the compressor maintenance as well.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on line 56?
No.
Okay. All right. Line 57, always a fun one. Vehicle maintenance.
So vehicle maintenance, I've sent letters to the finance committee before. Almost nothing is done in-house anymore by the town mechanic. Very, very little. So that's another discussion that could take place with the highway surveyor on how that position in the future is done. But and not all of it's his fault. A lot of it is because the equipment that we have today is just have vehicle specific dealerships and things like that. But we're not having almost anything done in-house. And then the second part of the problem I have at the fire station right now is that I don't, in the past, I've had very mechanical people like who side, that type of thing. And I don't really have that in my staff right now. So most of, with the exception of some minor thing, light bulb, changing lights and things like that, a lot of this, everything has to go out to be repaired.
Yeah, I see like last year on the supplies, we had a big drop from 2019, and now we're getting sort of, but kind of making up like half of what it used to be. So that's fine. Anybody have any questions on line 57?
No.
Everybody's good. And line 58 is the ambulance supplies. And I assume that's just due to PPE?
Yeah, I sent Sandy an email. I'm not sure if she forwarded out to the committee, but we received an email just from one of our suppliers that we buy latex gloves off of, and basically putting us on notice that they're seeing 100% increases just in the price of latex gloves. So I don't know how that's going to relate to. I'm imagining we're going to see that in a lot of the PPE that we use this year coming up. But I can tell you for certain that we, just on latex gloves, they told us to anticipate 100% increase.
Ouch. That's crazy. Anybody have any questions for Jason on line 58?
No.
Okay, so we have line 59, and that's looks to be exactly the same as last year. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the billing will still be fine at that amount. Usually at the end of the year, we've had a little bit of a buffer that we've had to move around to make up other parts of our budget. But I think that, the company we've outsourced to is doing a great job. We don't have a dramatic increase in the amount of call volume, so we're not going to see a big change in ambulance billing. But so I think we're fine keeping that number as is. And like, I just want to note that since we've outsourced, if you look back at how much additional revenue is coming into the ambulance account, it's really been a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have any questions on line 59?
Nope.
All right. Anybody have any final thoughts for Jason? Any questions?
Doing a good job.
Okay. Jason, anything else you want to bring up?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay. What we're basically doing is meeting with all the departments. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, most of these discussions on where when we actually do the voting will probably happen in March after we've gone through and seen what every department needs and what we actually have for money and that sort of stuff. So I do thank you for coming tonight and giving us some explanations as to the line items so that we have a better understanding. So next month when we actually start making these decisions, we'll
Great.
have a better idea what's going on.
Always available.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I don't know.
Thanks, Jason.
I don't know if before the chief gets off, or Amy, or it's the chief or Sandy or whatever wants to answer. Amy Troop put up a question asking how that revenue that is being applied, that's being brought in from the ambulance. I don't know if you guys saw it in the chat.
I did not. Thank you, Amy.
So ambulance revenue goes into the general fund. Just a little bit of history on that. Several years ago, when we changed our staffing models, we totally redid our ambulance rates. We were much lower than the market average. So there was a percentage of that money that went towards additional staffing for the fire department, and we did a whole presentation on how, we're now not going to mutual aid and how that all works out, and the town meeting supported that. But now all the revenue that comes into the town from ambulance billing goes into the general fund. I'm assuming that answers the question, Sandy. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
You're right. It goes into the general fund. It's part of our local receipts with our local revenue, which goes to help. Our local receipts helps to reduce the tax levy.
Amy, any other questions, or are you all set? I gotta get used to this whole chat thing. So Amy just wants to follow up. So it lowers what needs to come from the tax of our residents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Jason, again, thank you very much for visiting us tonight. And we look forward to working with you in the future, and keep up the great job that you do.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, next on the agenda is budgets, and this is going to get real fun. So Sandy sent out a revised budget.
Silver Lake.
Well, that's good. We're going to get there. It's all part of the same thing. So the Silver Lake Regional School District budget and the Halifax Elementary School budget. Sandy, you went through and put that all into our where we are, right?
To your budget spreadsheet, right?
Right.
So I updated it. You'll see on the budget spreadsheet, if you look at the expense page, anything that's in purple, I may not have heard from that department yet, so I just put in a level fund.
Okay.
Like the youth and rec, I don't think he's gotten back to me yet, the parks, things like that. So I put in all of that as level funded. The school assessment, I just got that today from Christine, so I put that amount in.
Yep.
And so I filled it all in. It's overwhelming, to say the least.
Yep.
And it
Certainly
does look like we're going to need to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to see where we can reduce, because at this point we have more expenses than revenues by quite a bit.
But like how much is it?
About 600,000. If you look at the synopsis page, I did go and double check all those figures.
Okay.
If we are to keep the 300,000 on the table like we've been doing,
Yep.
if we try to keep that, maintain that, we do have to bring the budget down over 600,000. So I was told by Christine Healy, the business manager for Silver Lake, that these budgets are just the first version. So the school committees have not gone back at them These are the first things that came out from the superintendent's office. So hopefully there'll be some give in those. And then we'll have to look at other places where we can cut. We're hoping that the group insurance line will be able to come down some. Right now, we're at a little high. We have heard that they're not going to increase quite as much as we anticipated, so that will help. But yeah, there's it's a bit overwhelming once you fill in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gordon mentioned at the Silver Lake Regional meeting that he was pretty sure we weren't going to be able to handle it, and I was pretty sure I was in agreement with him. Gordon, do you have any opinion on whether or not we can get them to make cuts on the district side?
I'm not sure how much they're going to be willing to cut. One of the issues with the Silver Lake budget is that we have a net decrease of $160,000 for in-state aid.
Yeah.
So I think that, that's about 50 grand to Halifax. I don't think that the town really could support a $225,000 increase either, but I think it would be useful if members from the finance committee could come to the next Silver Lake meeting and voice your opinion on what you think the budget is. I mean, I've been saying since 2010, the budget's unsustainable. We're seeing increases of at least $600,000 every year now just because of just salary increases. And, we're a third of that. So that's $200,000 to Halifax. We can't afford to do that.
Yeah, and again, if you look at the number of students, it's been on a steady decline for quite a few years. That's why I'm like, why do we keep going up year after year after year when we're losing 20 to 30 students every single year for we're literally I think at least 100, 120 students less than we were 5 or 6 years ago.
Correct.
So
I think one of the other issues, Fred, just to bring up to the newer members, is the charter school issue.
Yeah.
The charter school students basically get the average tuition cost of $17,000 for the upcoming school year. So it doesn't actually take $17,000 to educate those students. So the public schools take that money and disperse it into the special needs students. Mm-hmm. But when the students go to charter schools, they get more money spent on the average student than the public schools can afford to spend. So it's really a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So the special needs kids those programs are not carved out at all when they do the charter school. They just presume charter school kids are going to somehow use that money.
Yeah. So basically you apply to a charter school, you get the tuition that the charter school gets to charge each one of the students' districts, home sending districts. So this year it's about $17,000 for the ones that we're sending to from Silver Lake.
Okay.
And another issue that maybe you guys want to consider about the regional agreement is that right now, if you go to Silver Lake, if you're supposed to go to Silver Lake from Halifax, a student from 7 to 12, the charter school money comes out of Silver Lake's budget. We're a little further away from the charter schools that Kingston's close to. So they can send more students and draw a larger portion of the number of students than Halifax is going to send. So it sets up a disproportionate cost to Silver Lake that we're funding those students at a higher rate than what we can fund our own students.
Two other things I want to quickly ask about the school budget. The safety officer, which was approved last year by the towns, I assume there's going to be another article this year for that?
Correct. And we also are asking for an article for a stabilization fund. We voted against that previously, but as a member of Silver Lake, we're asking for it.
I saw that $350,000 for the tennis court, which kind of shocked the heck out of me.
Yes. So on that, we were given an option that we could move forward with $145,000 fix that might last 3 years. Or we move forward with a $350,000 redo and it lasts, 15 to 20 years. So the bang for the dollar is, redo it.
Yeah, I get I get why you'd go that route. It's just unfortunately we're in this economy where so many people lost their jobs due to COVID and everything else like that. It's just a bad time to get hit with that kind of a number. That's my concern with that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Do you have any concerns? I know you're on the school board for the Halifax Elementary School as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're 175,000 to 200,000 increase for special needs.
Yeah.
And we're about the same for the regular day. So again, it's a lot of money, and I'm aware of that. And I'll be asking at our next meeting, which is the public budget hearing, if any members want to attend. That's March 1st at 6 p.m. We use Google Meet for that, and I'm the chair of that committee, so I'd be asking if anybody has any items that they'd like to bring up on the budget, and just the overall budget. If you guys wanted to discuss the overall budget, that's a good thing to do. So
okay. And these numbers assume returning to a normal environment at school, correct?
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
they do.
So if we're still stuck in this environment, and we have to use, like, if Silver Lake has to go to a third-party platform, let's say there's going to be an additional cost for students, that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody, that this is a best-case scenario, at least with the budget that was presented.
Mhm.
Just at the elementary school, so everyone's aware, we currently have 3 long-term subs that we've been using for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. And then we also have a building sub that we've been using, which is, we really can't get substitute teachers. So using that building sub to cover for the people that are out or move them around has worked out well. And I think that would be something that I'd ask to support long-term. But if we are running up against this financial wall, I think we're going to have some tough issues to face for the budgets.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments for Gordon with regards to the Silver Lake or the elementary school budgets? I know we can get into much detail later. I know I've got Jill coming in March, sorry. So we can go do a deeper dive into the actual line items. I was concerned with regards to some of the athletic increases. I know they were trying to offset like costs that because they didn't have like people attending events and that sort of stuff. And that's why that's some of it. But again, my concern was let's focus on the educational first and athletic second. And I don't want it to be like, oh, we got to, get coaches on board and all this other stuff just to, get back to where we were. It's like, you got to focus on the education first. I understand that the athletics are important, but they should not supersede the actual purpose of the school, which is to teach the kids.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so we'll get into a much greater detail line item breakdown when Jill comes in next month. I don't want to get into that tonight since she's not here to actually answer questions. So
Okay.
So does anybody have any other questions, or are we good to move on?
So guys, do we anticipate a version 2 before, I mean, kind of when would that round of kind of adjustments from the school board come?
So we have the budget meeting for the elementary school on the 1st. So maybe a week or 2 after that, you might see, you might see possible items change, but usually unless we have another meeting and vote that budget, I wouldn't count on changes as a member of the finance committee at this point.
How about the regional budget?
So the regional budget, we have to vote by March 15th, I believe. So I did ask for possible reductions to see what that would look like. I think you guys will find out that Plimpton is usually a month behind where you guys are, just typically in every finance year. I was on the finance committee from 2010 to 2018. So you'll see Plimpton's a little behind you guys. Kingston is usually right around where the town of Halifax is for meetings. I wouldn't be surprised if they push back their financial meeting until June, like they did in the past 2 previous years. Kingston is a whole different ball of wax when it comes to supporting the schools, and their Prop 2.5 is like $800,000. So.
Yeah, and just so the board knows, if Plimpton and Kingston vote for the budgets, we're on the hook. So if they vote for that massive increase, then we're stuck in that number. So
Yeah.
So I will do my best to negotiate what I think we can get done. As I can do.
Thanks.
okay, well, thank you, Gordon, for the
Awesome news, right?
Yeah, less than wonderful news. So, all right, so I guess it's time to move on to everybody's favorite discussion of wage and personnel amendments. Charlie.
I've not got it, as much as I sent out requests for information from the 10 back at this point. I'm going to have to now do it on a town by town basis to dig out information. That's true also for the, not the Board of Health agent for the wage level, which, whatever step, but also on the uniform allowance, I was looking for information. So I've made sure that the wage and personnel amendments are on the agenda for each of the selectmen's meetings. So I will be talking with them about this again tomorrow, but I don't have anything else at this point.
So what you sent out, is that going to be discussed tomorrow at the selectmen's meeting? Well,
I don't have anything back yet. That's my problem.
I see.
I sent out a note to my colleagues in the other 9 communities looking for payroll information for the various positions in grade 7 and grade 6. So we can do some comparisons, and I've gotten virtually nothing back yet. So I'm now going to have to, not travel there, but ring them up instead of just doing email and follow up.
Okay. Is there anything that selectmen are covering tomorrow with regards to wage and personnel?
Whatever I get done it's not going to be sufficient to see the selectmen tomorrow and say, okay, I'm recommending this, or here's 7 of the 10 towns, and here's what the numbers look like, or anything like that. I'm given the number of other things going on right now. As much as I'm going to have to spend time on this and having to spend time on the budget, for instance, or anything else.
I just wanted to check, since I was going to go to the meeting tomorrow, because I got to speak for Deb and Joe. I just was
I don't see any substantial discussion on wage and personnel other than I'll provide them with the same information I just did to you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions with regards to that for Charlie? Seemed pretty.
No.
Okay, so we'll just keep that as a consistent meeting item on our agenda from week to week, and as they come up, we'll deal with those. All right, next on the agenda is the RFP for legal services for the zoning bylaw review.
Right, so this was a article the Finance Committee sponsored at town meeting. So it's your article, it's not the selectmen, it's not the planning board, it's not the ZBA. It's been on my to-do list to bring it up and put something together so we can issue the RFP, because my understanding was back in the fall, the Finance Committee's position was that we should go out through some sort of bidding process. So that's I use that both when we did a town council RFP maybe 10 years ago, and then also I looked at a couple of similar RFPs from other communities to do with specific reviews of zoning bylaws. And the draft is what resulted. It's yours. So, add, subtract, revise to your heart's content. The only thing I mentioned, I sent out an email earlier today that if something isn't brought in, certainly for this May's town meeting, that we need a new section regarding permitting for the small 5G cellular towers, not the big ones like on the water tower, but 5Gs are going to be able to be put on telephone poles, street light poles, things like that. And we're going to need to do some permitting issues relating to those, for instance, what they look like as an example.
Is that something zoning's working on right now?
Not that I'm aware of right now, no.
Okay, so obviously we want them to take the lead,
So either they or somebody else could bring it to town meeting in May, but if that doesn't happen, that could be on the list of items to be reviewed by whoever the Finance Committee hires for this project.
Okay. And when do you think we'll get like submissions back?
Well, if you tell me go, then I think I put a date of March 15th.
Okay.
And
All right,
the
so-
idea is the idea will be not to bring anything to town meeting in May, other than the
Right.
5G. The planning board does something on its own or something, or somebody else brings something into them. But the idea is to aim for the May of 22. There's no, I mean, all these things are issues. There's still going to be issues, but also rushing, trying to do everything in 2.5 months, there's little point in that. I'd rather have it done properly and any revisions brought to the May 22 town meeting than to try and rush things at this point.
Now, just for my information, if they come back with like ridiculous numbers, we don't have to move forward, correct?
No, the point is that I drafted the RFP on the basis of very specifically telling them, you have $65,000. What can you do for us for $65,000? It's not so much how much money for a complete revision, because we have a limited budget. It's, here's the budget. What can you do for us within that budget?
All right. So
not that you have to pick the one that says, I'm going to do 20 of them versus the one that says, I'm going to do 15. I think you look a little bit more into what they're talking about and what your expectations are. But if we're not expecting a complete soup to nuts revision, then it's important to, how many of these areas of concern can they provide revisions? Having obviously talked with you, talked to the planning board, talked to the ZBA, talked to the selectmen, done hearings with the public or forums of the public or polls or whatever we're going to be doing in the interim, during the pandemic, post-pandemic. But, there's going to be a limit as how much they can get done for the money we have, but I want to get as much done as we can for the money we have.
Okay. So we should vote on sending out the letter, correct?
Yes.
And it's just to get information at this point as to what they can do within the budget.
Right. They can send proposals.
Okay, so I will make a motion to send out the letter that Charlie drafted with regards to legal services for the zoning bylaw review. Do I have a
Second.
No, it's first. Actually, got to go first. Does anybody want to? Sorry.
Hey, Fred.
Yes.
So Amy is, in the chat bringing up some things, and I just had a quick question, if I could. Is it too early if I'm not voted in yet?
No, you can bring up whatever you want, Joe. Yep.
All right. So I deal with RFPs on a daily basis at work as well. So Charlie, just on a quick question, I haven't been able to read through the RFP in particular, but does it outline the services you're requesting from the law firms?
Yes. What I'm looking for is, in fact, a project schedule, what they can accomplish during the next year for the May 2022 town meeting.
Okay, got it.
And again, my thought process, at least how I was thinking is, we're going to look at the proposals that they give us. We have an expectation of what we want. If we're nowhere near what if they can provide us nowhere near what we're hoping to get, at that point, we do not have to move on.
No, you don't have, always have a right not to accept or award a contract, especially in this case. Legal services are not something that falls under the state's procurement law. It's one of as I even write into the RFP, I specifically say, this is not a Chapter 30B procurement. So if you look at it and say, well, no one's giving us enough for the money we've got, in our feeling, then you say, okay, thank you very much for sending in a proposal. We've decided not to award a contract.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess my question did you outline what your expectations of what you wanted, like what you want them to do? And primarily the only reason I asked that question is typically, and again, I'm new to finance and city government or town government, but typically in an RFP, I would never give a subcontractor, quote unquote, a dollar value to grab to. I would almost tell them the services that I want and tell them what they're going to charge me.
Well, the thing here is that the town meeting was public.
Oh, okay.
And so the amount of the appropriation is public.
Got it.
And, I think you're going to, and the thing is, let's say someone said, I can do 5 things for 32, or I can do 8 things for 42. At some point, I don't know what it's going to be up to you. I mean, you may get a proposal that says we can do everything for 50.
Right.
I don't think you're going to, but you're going, because it's going to be your award, not mine. But
Yeah.
I've been very specific in the RFP of the expectations here, in that in fact, I've said to them in the RFP, even submitting the RFP, you're going to tell us what areas do you think are of concern, and which of these can you do a review and make recommendations for the finance committee, in terms of the timetable.
Got it.
And I want to, I don't see, maybe the finance committee is going to go back for additional money, but I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, but I wanted to maximize the amount of work that the town and the finance committee were going to get for the money that was available.
Yeah, I think where this one is different is usually going into one of these, Joe, if it's a physical, it's an RFP for physical services, the scope of the work. And this one's more an intellectual property proposal. So you don't know how big the nut is going to be until they come back. And part of what we'll get value from the law firms is they'll actually tell us where we're exposed. And so we'll get value. Sort of, Charlie's going to give us something for free just by them coming back. If they come back with a good proposal, we'll know where we're exposed on the regs that we're trying to get reviewed.
Got it.
Yeah, I agree with Tom. And again, I think we should move forward with the request, since it was approved at town meeting. We're not locking ourselves in as a committee to say we're going to spend this money or not. Again, at a later point, after we get the responses back, we as a committee will sit here and say, is this even worthwhile to move forward? And I'm not saying it is, and I'm not saying it isn't. But I certainly would appreciate getting the additional information, which is why I think we should send it out. But again, we'll bring that to a vote. So does anybody have any other questions before I bring it to a vote? Okay, so again, would somebody like to make a motion to approve to send out the RFP for legal services for the zoning bylaw review?
So I'll make a motion to send out the RFP for a review of our zoning bylaws.
Second.
Second, okay. Let's do a roll call vote then on this. Cheryl?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
And I'll say aye as well, since this is just informational information. So, okay. Let's move on to, do we have any reserve fund transfers, Linda?
We do not.
That's always nice. Correspondence. I did see that one thing that you sent out today.
Yeah, let me take a quick peek what we
That
have
was on
here.
the Norfolk.
Oh, county agricultural.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just in our box at the end of the day. Just for informational purposes, I suppose, more than anything, for all of you, on what the cost is for the student to go there, and to be expecting that we have at least a couple of them.
So is that an increase? Do we know in costs from?
Sandy, do you know the figures on that? I don't have historic figures on it.
I don't. Gordon might. Gordon, do you know what the figures might be?
How many students did they?
They just said 2 currently, and 2. There are 2 students enrolled currently at Norfolk Aggie, and there are 2 who have applied for admission for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay, so I think what we had was 4 students total in the vocational program, because it's about $30,000 each for just the tuition, and then there's the transportation piece as well. So I think that that's an increase over what we have this year. I want to say there's 3.
There's also, well, I know that Christine mentioned to me there might be someone applying to Bristol Aggie.
Oh, that was just Norfolk.
Is it Norfolk? Okay.
Linda, was that?
This was Norfolk that we got the notice from. Norfolk Aggie said that they had 2 currently, and they have 2 applying for next year, but that enrollment could change at any point with either the 2 that are there dropping out or the people who are applying maybe not accepting it. And they were at $24,100 for out of county tuition.
Okay. Yeah, we do Bristol too as well. So Charlie's correct. So if we have 1 there, so if that's a total of 5, then I would think the number that we have in there now would probably stay. Sandy's shaking her head, yes. So good news on all fronts, everyone.
Woo-hoo. Any other wonderful correspondence, Linda, with good news for change, maybe?
There was nothing else. I think everything else that we had for correspondence all either did with the zoning or the schools budgets.
So.
Oh, I'm sorry. The one other thing is, and I think that I sent this out last week to you all. I can't remember if I put it in the last one that I just did, but the information from the Council on Aging about the possibility of needing another new van.
I didn't see that.
I think it was in the one that email that I sent you that had about, 6 things attached to it.
Nothing in there either.
She kind of did a cover letter, and then she put in a couple quotes and a couple pictures, and she said that she was submitting this to the capital plan for the town. The van is old and needs to be replaced. It's a 2013. And she was looking for a 14-passenger wheelchair van, and she said that she might need it for 2022, but she might not need it until fiscal 2023. So she just wanted to put FinCom on notice that it's something that she's looking at with the capital plan, hopefully within the next year or 2.
All right, so that will go to capital planning and they'll make a recommendation. Is that correct?
I would think so. Sandy, yes? I think so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about it right now because.
No, she just wanted to kind of give you a heads up, I think.
Okay. All right. So public participation. Anybody have anything that they want to bring up? I'm looking at the chat board. I'm not seeing anything new. So we'll move on to calendar. We are booked for next Monday, correct, Linda?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're booked all the way through March on Monday.
Pretty much.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So I assume that works for everybody still.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. If we're going to have to probably start looking at adding some extra meetings in March because we do have a lot of hard decisions that we're going to have to make. So when we get to probably next week, we might want to start thinking about adding a couple extra meetings.
Okay.
But I guess we can have that discussion next week when we have a full board of Joe and Deb on so we can get their input as well. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does anybody have anything else that they want to bring up as may arise?
No.
Okay, well then it's 7:04 and I think we can wrap this meeting up. Do I hear a motion to end this meeting tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Cheryl.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
And myself as I. Everybody, you have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you next week.